Welcome. My name is Thomas Allen Moon, and I'm the author of Payback: Why the Top 1% Must Invest in the Rest, and How It Can Renew America. I wrote Payback to deal explicitly with an ongoing trend that politicians of all stripes have refused to admit exists. Over the last 40 years, the gap between what it costs to live the American dream and the market income of ordinary workers has widened from a gully to a canyon. This canyon now threatens the future of the middle class, and if nothing is done, Americans with ordinary skills will fall out of the middle class. Payback proposes a tax policy that will enable capitalism not only to save the middle class, but to grow and make it more prosperous. Since Payback digs deeply into the weeds, I've recorded this Q&A to give readers a quick take on it. To make this Q&A easier for readers to digest, I've divided it into 15 sections. Payback is free to read on a website that I've created for the convenience of readers. It's my hope that Payback will contribute to a national dialogue on tax policy that I believe will take place sometime in the next decade. Now let's get started with the Q&A. Part 3. Capitalism remains the best system for growing the economic pie. Tax reform can ensure the pie is sliced to meet social needs. First question. I've got the quandary, but what does tax policy have to do with it? Tax policy offers a solution. If for the entire economy, income for workers is too low and income for capitalists is too high to maximize growth, then taxes can be increased on capitalists and lowered on workers to levels that do maximize growth. The goal of tax policy should be to ensure maximum growth by taxing at levels that enable both workers to have enough income to buy the most capitalists can produce, and capitalists will have enough capital to produce it. Next question. So you recommend using tax policy to make capitalism create the most wealth possible? Exactly. I want capitalism to rip and roar, but to stay viable, it must enrich workers as well as capitalists. The goal of tax policy shouldn't be to punish success, but to create as much wealth as possible for both workers and capitalists. Question. Essentially, you are arguing for using tax policy to redistribute income. Is that right? Yes. Capitalism creates prosperity far better than any other system, but it doesn't always distribute it well. Sometimes external forces such as globalization and technological innovation intervene to distribute income and wealth in ways that harm both economic growth and social equity. For the past 2 generations, these forces have been concentrating too much income and wealth in capitalists. Whenever the maldistribution of income and wealth threatens economic growth and/or social equity, tax policy should be used to correct it, not exacerbate it. Question. Using tax policy to correct the maldistribution of income and wealth gets the government involved in redistribution, doesn't it? No doubt about it. At the outset, I want to make clear that I don't welcome the idea of the government being involved in the redistribution of income and wealth more than is necessary to maintain economic health and social equity in a society. If, and it's a huge if, income and wealth concentrate too much at the top for too long that it threatens irreparable harm to the economy and the body politic, the risk of doing nothing outweighs the risk of acting. It should be remembered, however, that the government has substantial experience with the redistribution of income and wealth. And like most things, it's good if it's done well, and it's bad if it's done poorly. Question. What's your test for when redistribution is done well and when it's done poorly? Redistribution is done well when it promotes economic growth and/or social equity, and it's done poorly when it frustrates either. That's fine in the abstract. Now give me a specific example of redistribution done well. All right. Medicare is an example of redistribution done well. It disproportionately taxes those with the highest incomes to provide health care to those with the lowest income. It passes the social equity test because it provides an essential service to those in need. And it passes the economic growth test because it expands the healthcare industry by providing paying patients. Had an amount equal to the taxes paid by upper income taxpayers to pay for health care for the needy been used to purchase luxury goods, then the luxury goods industry would have been expanded. I believe that growing the healthcare industry is better for the economy and society than growing the luxury goods industry. Next question. All right, now give me a specific example of redistribution done poorly. All right, debt finance tax cuts for the rich are examples of redistribution done poorly. Since 1981, there have been 4 major tax cuts, all of which both added to a bulging national debt and disproportionately benefited taxpayers in the top 1%. These tax cuts flunked the social equity test because they unnecessarily increased the income and wealth of the top 1% at the expense of future generations of taxpayers, and they flunked the economic growth test because the small increases in current growth that these tax cuts sparked will be offset by lower growth when the added debt must be repaid. I believe that enriching the top 1% by increasing the national debt is bad both for economic growth and for social equity. Question. You said the government is experienced in redistribution, income, and wealth. Give me some examples. All right. The income tax itself is an example of redistribution. It replaced tariffs as the primary source of revenue because it was many, many times more progressive than tariffs. Progressive is shorthand for the ability to pay principle, which means that those with high income pay more taxes than those with low income. In addition to tax policy being progressive, so too are social insurance programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Affordable Care Act, student aid programs, unemployment insurance, food stamp programs, low-income housing programs, and other similar programs. These programs are all financed by taking more from those with high income and distributing more to those with low income to meet a social need. Question. Progressive is a big word and can mean many different things to different people. Just how progressive should taxes and social insurance be? Well, this is the crux of the matter. Since the New Deal, there's been general agreement that both taxes and social insurance programs should be progressive. But there have also been ongoing disputes about the degree of progressivity. So the issue in almost all instances isn't whether taxes and social insurance programs should be progressive, but how progressive should they be? This is a big part of what my book Payback is about. Generally, the greater the concentration of income and wealth, the greater the need for progressivity. That concludes part 3.